A lot of research.
So it all kind of starts with the research and what kind of best suits the setting. And then it's really good to go out and do like a location recce.
The character in terms of the location of your project is as big a storytelling device as anything else in your film.
When you're actually looking for locations, especially when you're looking for houses, the way that I did it was I went through a whole bunch of Airbnbs. Now, Airbnbs, you just got to be careful when you do it because the people on Airbnb, a lot of them are really used to filmmakers and a little bit cautious around filmmakers.
FilmVic's online website is a really great place to find locations. So for Feast on the Young specifically, I was looking for a very particular looking forest, and they had quite a few places on their website that you could look at and that other productions had used in the past. And I think if you've found a couple of places that you are really interested in or has the right look that you think will suit your film, then it's all about just going to those locations and looking at the space, but not just from a creative point of view, but from a logistical point of view as well. So it might look really great on camera, but how is it going to work with all your crew, with your cast? Where are you going to source power? Where are people going to go to the toilet? You know, all those little things that you need to consider when you're scouting for your film.
We will just drive around, see if there is a good place. Like for Encounter, I think we drove for about 3,000 kilometers. And it was crazy.
I would tend to write from available locations. So the first film I did was a friend's house. Second one was my grandma's old house. And the third was my own house.
Most of the locations I used were locations that I knew, locations that I liked, and locations that had inspired me while I was making the film.
When you're going into someone's house, remember first and foremost that you're not walking onto a set, you're walking into someone's home. And what that means is you really need a proper production, a production manager, a locations manager, in order to actually look after the house itself. Make sure there's no sticky tape, there's nothing left behind, nothing's broken, nothing's scuffed up against the walls.
The thing is, you've really got to be open to everywhere you go in your daily life, thinking about them in terms of your story or a story and remembering them. Have a systematic way to sort of catalog, oh, that's a cool place that I want to feature somewhere in my story. It's cool, like it's an amazing challenge how to reflect the city in a new way, and I think people just need to be doing that more and more often. Check out Melbourne I Love You on Instagram, for instance, you know, just cool, glamorous pictures, and you're like, oh, maybe they fall in love there, or maybe he breaks up with her there, and he's like, yeah, I'd watch that because it looks cool.
There can be, quite a bit that you need to kind of take into account, and also like providing enough time to get the permit approved and stuff, because it's kind of like a pretty tedious process having to like fill out all of that information and map out like where exactly you'll be shooting and stuff like that.
It takes forever for them to process the applications. So that's something I think we need to keep in mind. It takes forever.
So I'm from Africa, and in Africa, sometimes you can get away with stuff that you might not necessarily be able to get away with here in the first world, quote unquote. What am I saying? I'm saying that sometimes you can get away with like guerrilla filmmaking tactics a lot more in places that aren't as restrictive as you might find in a place like Melbourne. So what does that mean? It means you've got to be nice to people. So people love working with people they like. And sometimes a permit is as literally as like, oh, you're on the phone with a person that really doesn't want to give it to you every day, but because you're nice every time you call, they're like, all right, cool. Look, I'm going to help. Here's the thing. This is what you need to do. And you get it done.
Outdoor locations in particular, that's anything that's in a park that's usually run by Parks Victoria. And with that, you need to firstly ask their permission to be able to film there, and then also apply and pay for a permit as well to be able to shoot. It's not as simple as just applying and paying and then you've got it. You've got to really have a plan in place about where you're going to place your unit, where you're going to shoot specifically, and just know that you can't stop the public from coming and going through these locations as well.
Make sure there's a toilet nearby. It's easy to sort of forget, but make sure there's toilet, there's running water, there's those sort of basic necessities. Electricity is a big one. Sometimes when you're shooting out in the middle of a park, they won't have electricity. And so you might need to bring a generator, which causes a lot of noise, which means you have to shoot dialogue in a certain way. So just keep those things in the back of your head.
The morning of the last day of the shoot, we lost a location. They tried to pull out. They were saying, well, you can't shoot here because you're going to be using a firearm. Nobody told us that you were using a firearm. We had told them that we were using a firearm. You can't be walking through this hallway with a machine gun. You're not allowed to film here. Stephen got that email at 6 o'clock in the morning and we were scheduled to start shooting at 9 o'clock. In the 3 hours between that, he scrambled, he called the boss of the person that had told him that we couldn't shoot there and, made his argument and we got the location back and we were able to shoot there at 9. When I rocked up to set, Stephen didn't tell me any of that had happened because if he had, it would have rocked me, it would have thrown off my focus and I would have been thinking, oh my God, we almost lost this location. He told me when we'd wrapped at the end of the day and we were laughing, having a beer, because, location anxiety is a thing that plays into you making the film. So trust your producer, get a good producer, get a producer who's on top of their shit, and you'll be fine.
For my other films that I'd made at VCA, I had done the production design, which doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it means that, on top of directing and thinking about the scenes, I was also thinking about how everything needs to look and props and things like that. But when you have a production designer who's a real expert in that,
believability and the ability to immerse yourself in a world and a reality.
The production designer, just the day before we started shooting was like, okay, so I'm working on this thing, a piece of graffiti, but I don't want you to come in and see it until I'm ready. So we're going to move the shoot for this location back a couple of days. And I was like, I was so mad. I was like, no, but what does the producer think? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the day arrives and we walk onto location and there's this beautiful mural graffiti of like this amazing singer from back in the day that like her sound, her name is Lebu Matosa, her sound kind of exemplifies everything about what this character's journey was all about. Because she was like, go and fetch your life, do your thing, be a queen, be great, be great. And I didn't know that we needed that until I saw it in the space and it was perfect. And that production design decision told a story much more than anything I or anyone else would have come up with that day.
We built like many miniatures, like the small houses for the town, for the, misty small town. And I don't really remember the number, but I think it's like less than 20.
Sometimes I would be making script alterations that would affect set in the days leading up to the shoot. And I think it's best to avoid that where possible. Because, production design is it's a huge job.
Just have a good relationship with your production designer. That's it. Have a great color palette. That's it, honestly. But honestly, you want to save some finances, just look for locations instead of building sets. But really, once you find a great location, that's it. That's it, I'm telling you. Save your money. But have a great production designer. Be on the same page.
Arriving into Melbourne, I was really struck by how put together everything is or can be here. But I think that life is more dynamic than straight lines and sort of tram electric things and, every street sign is properly painted and whatever. What I'm getting at is it's a really interesting exercise to explore what comes out of things that are not perfect. And I think that, like old buildings and old cars and like slightly faded street signs and whatever, all of that imbues work with a type of richness that I think look again at what you see in your everyday because it can make your work much more layered and authentic.